a very big Democrat stronghold. And so if I were them, I'd be fighting for it too. I want to see the Republicans do well.
Right. We'll find out the results of the hearing, whether or not they're going to be able to keep that open.
Yeah, it's my home state. I grew up there, and I can just tell you it's been an agony seeing what's been happening in our politics over the last few years. It's gotten very rough, very nasty. And this is a big showdown night in North Carolina because the McCrory's up in a very tight election for governor, to be reelected to governor. And there's also a Senate race that could actually change the leadership of the Senate to Democratic if Burr loses a Republican governor. So there is a Republican senator. So this is what's your structural to the way this whole election, the sense of democracy works.
We also saw President Obama making numerous trips to North Carolina to try to raise as much support.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Well, he's trying to get out the African-American vote because there was a sense that it wasn't turning out, as Bakari knows, in the numbers that they needed it to turn out. And I think, what we're going to be watching tonight is whether there is a real demographic shift in this country. The last election, 72% of the people who voted across the country were white. We're going to have to see if that number decreases this time. And so demographics is destiny, as we always say. So the question is, in North Carolina and in other places, will minority vote make a difference for the Democrats? We're also going to be looking at the shifting in the country versus in college versus non-college educated voters. I mean, this is something that really interests me because for the last 60 years, Republicans have won the college educated vote in this country. Is that going to change? The white college education.
And we've seen
is that going to change?
We've seen some of the demographic. We've seen some of the demographic information, the racial information, in some of the early exit polls, but those are very early, so we're going to be giving more of those throughout the night. We're just minutes away from getting the first results from two major battlegrounds. Polls are about to close in Georgia and Virginia. This election night just getting started. We'll be back after a quick break.
On the phone or with the Geico app.
Everybody likes more.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
On the next Parts Unknown.
Any excuse to come to Japan is a good one.
The greatest sushi chef in America takes Tony back to where it all started.
What was it like apprenticing here? Hard? Oh, man.
A land of tradition, temptation.
Ooh, look at that.
You gotta eat quickly.
And relaxation.
I feel healthier already.
Where's the beer?
Ordained Parts Unknown. And Sunday at 9.
Clinton, Trump. Only one team has both sides covered. Watch Election Night in America on CNN.
Demographic shift in this country. The last election, 72% of the people who voted across the country were white. We're going to have to see if that number decreases this time. And so demographics is destiny, as we always say. So the question is, in North Carolina and in other places, will minority vote make a difference for the Democrats? We're also going to be looking at the shifting in the country versus in college versus non-college educated voters. I mean, this is something that really interests me because for the last 60 years, Republicans have won the college-educated vote in this country. Is that going to change? The white college education.
And we've seen
is that going to change?
We've seen some of the
We've
seen some of the demographic information, the racial information, and some of the early exit polls, but those are very early, so we're going to be giving more of those throughout the night. We're just minutes away from getting the first results from two major battlegrounds. Polls are about to close in Georgia and Virginia. This election night just getting started. We'll be back after a quick break.
Trump. Only one team has both sides covered. Watch Election Night in America on CNN.
Cool.
Want to win or not.
In the heat of the election, catch up on the most cutthroat campaigns in American history. Watch every episode of Race for the White House, narrated by Kevin.
Cuatro en ese momento son rojas que pertenecen al Partido Republicano.
Welcome back. Right now, we have another key race alert. In Indiana right now, 2% of the vote is in. You see Donald Trump still maintains his significant lead, 22,500 plus over Hillary Clinton. 11 electoral votes at stake in Indiana early, but Trump has a significant lead in Indiana. Similarly, in Kentucky, 2% of the vote is in. He's at 68%. She's only at than 16,000.
Republican who's hoping to keep this seat in Republican hands is up with a significant margin there, up a little bit more than 13,000 votes, but only 2% of the vote is in. So we're going to keep watching that very, very closely because it's such a big one. Let's look at some votes coming in from Kentucky. Rand Paul, who started out this campaign running for president, dropped out. Now he's trying to keep his Senate seat. He's in his race for re-election. He's a little more than 10,000 votes ahead of his Democratic challenger, Jim Gray. We're going to keep watching that as well because, again, that's only 2%. Now let's look, Jake, at the current balance of power, where we start this evening. If you see up on the big board, Democrats right now have 36, Republicans have 30, and we are looking at 34 seats that we're going to be monitoring and projecting as we get the results in throughout the night.
But really, it's 9 seats that we're really focusing on because the others don't really have competitive races.
Exactly.
One of the things that's so interesting is about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Democrats wished the election had taken place.
Yes, they did.
In early October, when Hillary Clinton was really surging following the release of that Access Hollywood tape, and Democrats were talking about recapturing the Senate by big numbers. Then, of course, FBI Director Comey released that letter, and the race started tightening, and now they're hoping for some pickups, but we'll see how many they get.
Yeah, we'll see. Indeed, the Democrats had an advantage. More Republican seats were up for grabs. We'll see what happens very soon. Art Anderson, back to you.
Well, thanks very much. You know, Anna Navarro earlier was talking about the historic nature of this race, and it's very easy, I think, in all the vitriol that's been expressed in certainly the waning days of this campaign, all the divisions, to lose sight of just how historic this is. I mean, no matter who wins for different reasons.
You know, I saw something today which frankly just touched me, and I've said before, I never thought that the female factor was going to be something that was so significant to me, and it's definitely not the reason why I voted. But I saw today the line of people lining up in the cemetery where Susan B. Anthony's tombstone is, and the women putting the I voted sticker on her tombstone. Whether you are Republican or Democrat, if you believe in a woman's right to vote, if you believe that we are all equal in this country, that should be something that touches us all, that makes a significant statement for us all.
And obviously, Gloria, I mean, if Donald Trump wins, it is a historic night in a whole other way.
It's an historic night because you would have an outsider, new to politics, a celebrity.
Someone who hasn't been involved even in government or the military.
Not even in government. I mean, Eisenhower was the last one, but he was a general. So you'd have somebody who created a movement out of nothing, who was not aligned with any ideological wing of his particular party, who spoke to voters about their concerns of being disenfranchised from their own party as well as from the opposition party, who felt removed from Washington and said, you know, I've had enough and I don't want to take it anymore and I am looking for something different, somebody to shake up the establishment and the status quo. So either of these results would be historic for this country. I mean, I want to add to what Anna was saying. You know, it's the persistence of these women 96 years ago who got the right to vote for women in this country that those women were thanking today, because when you think it hasn't, you know, 96
and, you know,
years.
in our generations, we sometimes take it for granted.
Of course we do.
We take for granted that less than 100 years ago, women could not vote. Women were not equals in this country in that aspect. And so, look, whether she wins or not tonight, the fact that Hillary Clinton is out there competing for the big title is, I think, very significant to a lot of people in America.
Well, yeah, it's also significant that we talk a lot about the Latino vote, but also that the women's vote may be very historic in a lot of different ways. We don't have enough numbers right now to know for sure, but that she may be winning white college-educated women, that she may even possibly win married women, which would be the first Democrat since her husband barely won 20 years ago. So the fact that she could be, you know, moving these women. Now, we don't know if this is a realignment, if these are women that are moving away from the Republican Party, or if this is an anti-Trump.
But also just the changing demographics of the United States. I mean, not only how we're seeing it reflected this time around compared to even 4 years ago, to 8 years ago, but what it portends for the future as well.
Well, and we've got two things happening on the Latino front. First of all, the percentage of Latinos voting has been ticking up. It's gone from 8% to 10%, it's been ticking up. But also, the percentage of Latinos voting for the Republican Party has been ticking down. We went from 44% with George W. Bush to 31% with John McCain, which we thought was tragic, and we had to address, and we had to fix, and we had to deal with immigration. And then we went to 27% with Mitt Romney. At that point, our hair was set on fire on the Republican side. We needed to address this. We had a postmortem. Well, now we're worse than postmortem. We're dead even before the beginning. I can assure you that Donald Trump is going to get historic low numbers amongst Latinos. He's going to be probably in the teens. If he breaks 20, it's a good night for him with Latinos. And it would be sweet, sweet justice if after everything he has said, after every attack he has made against Latinos, after he has thrown out Latino anchors from press events, after he hasn't done any outreach, after he has questioned a judge's citizenship, after he has called Mexico. Are you sure about that? It would be sweet, sweet justice if tonight it was the Latino vote that defeated Donald Trump. Así que, mi gente, levántense y voten.
Anna Navarro, you're not a Trump supporter.
No, I'm not. You know what I am? I'll tell you what I am. I am a college-educated Latina. And sure as hell not a Trump supporter.
David Gergen.
I'm not sure I can follow that.
Yeah, it's,
we should go to break.
What languages do you speak?
College-educated Latina.
He's college-educated.
But we're already seeing this, obviously, in the early voting in Florida, which is the percentage of Latino voters, and